materials.
You see all of these synthetic materials, and you can start understanding their properties, looking at what they are, and draw parallels with them in real technology that we look at and use every day.
When we start dealing with this material that is in us, and sometimes when you break apart big portions of this stuff, lots of people have, and when you look at it under a microscope, and sometimes you don't have to look at it under a microscope, you see these networking like materials. And what me and my friend WT have been talking about for a very long time is that these fibers, we always come back to these fibers being the most integral part of this entire system
That we can see, right?
that we can see, that almost anybody can see. You don't need one of these expensive microscopes. You can just go out to the dollar store and buy an eye loupe and find most of these materials. You know, once you start studying your skin and your hair follicles, you start to understand what is yours, what is innate, inherent to you, and what isn't, what is foreign. And that's what we're trying to show you, that these foreign materials conceal themselves, cloak themselves as biology. And oftentimes what you'll see when you start examining your skin is that you see little specks and dots of injury where these fibers come out that look like hair, but they're the odd hairs. And also a good friend of mine, Matt, he just put out another post recently talking about these odd hairs. So I'll put a link in the description to go over to that one as well. But all these things, they all add up. They're always pointing towards these fibers and these networks and this electrification of our skin tissue. Why does some people feel like their skin tissue is on fire or being electrocuted to death? Well, because we have these piezoelectric materials that are jutting out of us and setting up antenna array systems. And so I downloaded an older video of mine where I was just kind of doing what I'm doing right now, rambling along, and didn't really understand what I was seeing and what I was presenting. And now that I have a little bit of a knowledge underneath my belt, I'm going to re-examine this video. Zach and myself are going to kind of tear it apart.
Just a note on those fibers, a lot of people are constantly trying to come up with excuses and reasons and rationalizations for what we see. And I understand, and I think that's a good thing as well. But what you show, Eric, and once people start watching more and more of your videos and looking at things themselves, what you see is that these fibers are embedded and, to use your words, interwoven or intermingled with biology, or, in your skin. In your video where you looked at the fibers in the chicken and you looked at the bone marrow, it's woven into the bone and the bone marrow. So it's not just about, finding some fibers, which some people will try and rationalize and say, oh, it's just fabric or something. This is interwoven into life itself.
All right, so here's a backstory to this particular scientific project that I was doing. I was doing these little things all the time, and I was just trying to figure things out. Now, I worked in the ER from like 2008 to like 2017, and I was seeing these type of fibers in wounds, and lots of folks' wounds, because I was cut loose to do wound care, what you call functional paramedic, and flushing out people's wounds and stuff like that, especially these really festered up groin wounds. These fibers have been seen everywhere. And so when I started capturing them outside of people's bodies, almost any and every single way you could think of, it can make you mad for a second. And I don't necessarily mean behavioral mad. It gets under your skin, pun intended. It really does. You're trying to make sense of this sadistic, insane world we live in.
Because you've already seen those fibers in infections and boils and abscesses and in sick people.
Right. Now, when you're just finding these things in the environment itself, you're like, what in the world is going on? What is truly going on? Right. And so what this little project was I just put a couple of drops of turpentine on a petri dish and left it out and walked away from it. This is inside my house. This wasn't like out in the the front yard, the backyard, in the woods or anything like this. This was literally just a couple of drops from a pipette of turpentine on a dish, petri dish. That's it. It looks like the mosquito basically tore itself apart trying to walk across this sticky turpentine because it dried up a lot.
Mhm.
So when I put it underneath the microscope, the first thing I saw was this fiber material laying over top of this mosquito.
And right off the bat, you can see that fiber, the quality of that fiber is different to the mosquito's legs and whatever else is lying around there. It's thinner and it looks different.
Yeah. So right there, I literally just broke this fiber trying to pull it off of that mosquito, and it's still kind of a little bit stuck to the turpentine there. And so for a second there, I was like, did it did it just reattach or try to hook itself back together? And I was like, no, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. And it
But look
almost,
how it's bending now.
you know, it detaches again, but
So can you go back and show it like breaking apart and then just move forward a little bit and let's see it again, just come back together, literally. Yeah.
right there, you can see it literally grab onto it.
Yeah.
And right there,
And yet if you look at that very point, it's bent like that.
yeah. Now this other piece over here grabs. So at the top and at the bottom, it's now gripping. Have you ever heard the word thorough gripper? It's gripping. That's what it does to our tissues. These things grip onto our tissues. All right, so it now is completely apart again.
So you broke it off again.
Yep.
And then boom, right back again. And this time there was a bigger overlap.
Yeah. It's almost like, hey, we need a bigger weld. We need a bigger bond
Mm.
so we can repair. And here's right here, you can see that bond, that new bond that is created right there. And what I'm going to show you now is that I started to just slightly breathe a little deeper. I didn't blow, just slightly breathe a little deeper. Makes no sense. Goes against the forces of nature. So you see this fiber down here? This is the other end over here, and it's lifting up as I'm slightly breathing on this end over here, this end piece, this tail over here is lifting straight up, not blowing away from me, just lifting straight up.
Yeah, it's erecting.
Right.
Yeah, but there's like a rigidity, not a rigidity. There's like an enlivening or something that is making it. Um, I don't know what even the right vocabulary for that is, but I've seen that myself on a much smaller scale, with less waving, and it's like there's something going in there.
Yeah, like almost like it's
Energy.
like a vertebrate animal can only go in certain directions, right? Because his vertebrae system can only let him flex or hyperflex, but so far.
Mm, mm. Oh, and look at that! You can see where it's self-repaired in that little pocket there.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Still holding tight though.
And so what is it reacting? What is potentiating it like that?
Something about our breath, brother, the breath of life.
And so someone over here might say, okay, well, you're breathing air onto it, so naturally it will move. So what's the difference? Why is what we're looking at so out of the ordinary?
Say we had a blade of grass and you would blow with all your force on a blade of grass. What would it do? What would be the behavior or the reaction to that?
It will blow or it will move away from the direction of the force.
Right. Just like a hurricane. If we look at a hurricane come through a town, you see trees bend down and almost lay down. Right? You never seen a tree stand up and go towards the hurricane, have you? Never. Never. It's not true nature to do that. And there's nothing about these fibers that's true nature.
Right, because it's not bending away, it's twisting and going up and going down and bending around. And when you look at that self-repair mechanism, I mean, that's incredible. I mean, when I see something like that, I was thinking of, if I had to put a label on it, of course, which I know can be very dangerous, but when you look at that, that looks like some kind of chain of magnets or something that is attracted to itself that will then just come back and bind. But in that same structure, maintaining that same fiber filament, which is quite confounding because when you look at like anything that's actually assembling, why is it assembling into this tubule or this wire? Why is it maintaining that structure?
That's the $1 million question. In my world, with the people I deal with and talk to, a lot of these folks who have these electrical sensations all over their body, they've been dealing with these materials long enough, and they know that they're about to go through some type of breakthrough infestation or breakthrough expression where they're going to start to see a lot of this stuff on their skin and their tissues. They know it's coming. They can feel the energy of it before it happens. And so obviously there is something very powerful with these materials that again goes beyond our imagination. And I definitely like how my brother WT, how he shows you these real world electrical components, how things are wired up. So we can take this concept that WT put forth and take all these physical applications and we can transfer it to the biology because that's what's happening. That's what's happening from your toes to your head and from your head to your toes. It sucks. It's sad. It's horrible. But the fact of the matter is, this is what's going on, and people need to learn how to address it. And the thing you really need to learn how to do is how to identify the wolves who are trying to hijack you further. That's the most important thing you can understand. If somebody's filling you up with more synthetic biological components, what are they really accomplishing? Who are they working for? Who was their master?
Is there anywhere where you haven't found these fibers, that you've looked and you haven't found these weird things that just defy our understanding of the world?
No, unfortunately, no.
Which then when you look at this and people are still talking about injectables and the next V and this and that, I think these kinds of findings and this kind of topic really contextualizes that, because then we look and we say, well, this isn't just about a vial or an injectable. This is a whole system that every living thing is exposed to, and it's everywhere. And not about injectable or not, that's a different topic. But there is something even more imperative for us to understand and address because it's far more widespread and it's everywhere. It's applicable entirely to everyone and everything.
And I have a video. I'm going to pull that up real quick. All right. So with this video right here, this is when I first started using my more powerful microscope. Under low magnification, on your basic microscope that somebody would have to view coins or whatever, looking at stamps, they look like fibers. But under this microscope, some of these materials that look like fibers under these cheaper microscopes, they actually look like glass tubules almost. like they're holding materials in there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So let's see. Play this a little bit and let it come into focus. Like right there. Look at that. And you can see that there is some type of material inside of these things.
Hmm. That also goes back, I think, to some of the weird light refraction properties that we see in a lot of these materials that are refracting different wavelengths and showing different colors. Oh, what's that?
Chicken bone marrow. There we go, right there.
Wow.
I think a lot of what we're seeing these infestations with these materials, not only do they act as antennas, networking wires, they're not just piezoelectric. They also are injectables. They're bringing something. They're injecting. There's fluid and materials in there.
Right, they're a delivery system, a carrier. And of course, clearly this is not any nano-sized anything, but if you want to look at nanotubes of various sorts, particularly carbon nanotubes, you can look at all of like very similar properties that we may be looking at, both as carrying a payload to be delivered in a very targeted manner, in conducting or acting as a radio. So it's very very interesting. But certainly when you look at a tubule or whatever this filament really is, you can be putting in whatever you want inside of that, and it's already been done with nanoscale materials very successfully.
Right. That's right. Look how you can see through it. It's transparent and because of the way the light is, but there's something inside of there.
Hmm.
And they all work together.
They work together because they come together, right?
That's right. They
They're
always come.
attracted.
They always affinity. They have affinity for each other.
So these fibers, when you're breathing on them, and I've seen this myself, this phenomenon myself, with lesser magnification and less waving, but certainly that same kind of um, response. So when you look at this, the thought that comes to mind is something parasitic of nature. So how are these powering themselves, or theoretically, how could they be powering themselves? And could whatever is actually causing this movement be happening inside of our body? And what could those effects be?
Right.
Maybe harvesting our, could that be harvesting some of our energy? Could that be vampirically sucking off our life force?
Right. So I know this may be reaching or whatever, but I worked in the ER from 2006 or eight. I think it was eight, all the way up to 2017 ish. And so every year that went by was another year of intensity in the EMR field, if you will, in their arena of getting everything to be wireless, wireless, and more wireless as we go. And the people that we were seeing in the beginning were in the poor neighborhoods. You know, these are the folks who live 10 to 15 members deep in a 800 square foot center block home at the end of the day in these apartment complexes. And these were the same communities that I served for my first 8 to 9 years in the fire department as a firefighter paramedic. And so when you see all this infrastructure go up in and around their neighborhoods, right? And then when you start seeing the school systems because of poverty, they they give them all these hotspots. So now they have all this infrastructure around them. They have these hotspots in their hands. They have these tablets in their hands. And what this, and I'm looking back retrospectively, I wasn't coming up to this conclusion then. This is just what I'm thinking out loud now from what I saw grow literally right in front of me. Again, I was doing wound care from the 2008s all the way up to almost 2017. And it seemed like annually these things were getting worse and worse. And you start seeing
Mhm.
the same, especially the teenage males, the males, they come in there and every year they have these breakout infections that are just spilling over with this material that
With this.
nobody, yep, that nobody is going to run a test on them. They literally, like, typically you would swab it and send it off for a culture. But if you showed the doc what was going on in there, they'd be like, I'm
We
like,
don't want these fibers to go to the lab.
no, we don't even want to test this at all. They didn't even test it
Mm.
for any type of infection. So if infection was really what they were really trying to worry about, and they needed, oh, you got to test the infection, you got to test it, right? This is pus, we got to test it. But they didn't touch that.
Wow.
They just give them some, lame antibiotics and send them on their way, and never tested any of that stuff ever, never. It's just ironic, I would say. Um, but they never want to look at it either. They didn't even want to see it. That just shows you right there that this stuff's been going on for a very long time, and they've done a very good job at what I call active ignorance. Like they actively ignore everything, and they only see what brings their check home. That's it. That is it. These materials over time were getting worse and worse and worse because the influx of EMR frequencies, and with frequencies comes what? Information. That's the thing that people don't truly understand, is that if you have frequency, you have magnetics. And then you have, with frequency, magnetics, information, radiation, which is heat. And that heat it can do anything. Who knows what it's really doing with these materials? It's almost like you got a bun in the oven. Like if you got a yeast roll in the oven, it's flat to start off with, but it gets bigger and bigger over time, does it not? Through radiation, through radiation, heat. This radiation is the hardest thing to really come to grips with and understand, because it's not just heat, it's something else to it too. Because the radiation in this frequency isn't like your traditional fire, right? I have a small campfire over here to my right. I can just throw a cup of water on it. It's gone like that. But this radiation that is all throughout the air, and we literally have all these little fires everywhere. Like literally live in a world of fire in the air that you cannot see, you cannot feel, you cannot touch. And there's no smoke to it. There's no particles of incomplete combustion, which is smoke. You just have all this friction that's around you all the time because of the different layers of frequency. You got layer, 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 and they're all rubbing each other and they're creating friction. And that heat is baking these little monsters in everybody's oven. That's my theory behind it.
So is that why you call them piezoelectric then?
Yeah, because they're surrounded by all kinds of energy banks. Like just walking to your mailbox, and I've showed this in a video before, just walk into your mailbox, you get hit with all kinds of microwave energy. And I live out in the country. I live out in the country, and I'm just getting hit by my neighbors, right? Love your neighbor, right? Do no harm, right? But that's what's happening, is that we're surrounded by an antenna array system, a complementary antenna array system everywhere you go. antenna, antenna, antenna. And now we have these subcutaneous epidermis antennas everywhere in every one. And there's literally nobody there trying to address it. They're trying to gaslight you, call you behavioral, call you crazy, call you this, or put you in a small room because you're talking about it. Yeah, you could talk about polymers, you could talk about hydrogels, you can talk about synthetic biology. You can even say that, but
You can talk about mRNA too, can't you?
you can talk about mRNA, you can talk about DNA. But when you start talking about these materials, these fibrous materials, I'm here to tell you, most people do not want to talk about it. They don't want to hear it. They're okay to show you a random filament in a blood here and there, but people aren't addressing the true place where these things take root, and it is in your skin, and it's all over your skin. And it's the easiest place to look, but nobody does, because everybody's looking to the next solution or the next big discovery. Ain't nobody discovering anything. Not really. Because if you're not addressing this stuff, these antenna array systems that are sticking out of all of us, interacting with this electrical system that we're surrounded by. This is not being about being gloom or doom, okay, folks? This is the true nature of what's going on. And I'm here to tell you, I'm affected just as much as anybody else with this material. I can feel things on my face, my ears, up and down my arms sometimes that could literally just make you just go to sleep, and you just want to just rest all the time and not get up and put your feet on the floor. But I do every day. Every day I wake up and put my feet on the floor, and I run my race that the Father's given me for today. And I do that every day. And I try to talk to as many people and try to help as many people as I can. We need to be, the only thing we can do is be light in darkness, and not be overwhelmed or overcome by fear or overcome by this sense of hopelessness. And I have been experiencing that a lot with a lot of folks who reach out to me, is this sense of hopelessness. Just give up and try to figure out who the wolves are who are trying to continue to hijack you. And they come to you as ambassadors of light. Our enemy often comes to you as an ambassador of light or an emissary of light, however you want to look at it. And he also has lots of other minions, puppets, schemers, wolves who work for him. They also come as ambassadors of light. So don't be fooled. Protect yourself, guard your mind, guard your body, and guard your soul. Take care, guys. Be safe.
Amen.